The 5th century Ireland was a land of legends, warriors and druids, but also the stage for the flourishing of Christianity, thanks to the tireless work of missionaries like Saint Patrick. It was on this fertile soil for faith that Saint Brigid was born, one of the most venerated saints of the country, considered the patron saint of Ireland, alongside Saint Patrick and Saint Columbanus. Brigid was born around the year 451 in Faughart, a village in the north of Ireland. Her history intertwines with oral tradition and the accounts of monks who preserved her memory. The saint's life is surrounded by miracles and acts of charity, reflecting a spirit that sought God above all else. Her mother, Brocha, was a Christian slave baptized by Saint Patrick, while her father, Dubtak, was a pagan chief of great influence in the region. From childhood, Brigid demonstrated a generous heart, sharing everything she possessed with those in need, an attitude that often irritated her father. It is said that, still a child, Brigid gave all the household butter to the poor. Her father, furious, reprimanded her, but upon checking the pots, he found them miraculously full again. This was just the first of many miracles associated with her. As she grew, Brigid enchanted everyone with her kindness and unwavering faith. Her desire was to consecrate herself to God, but her father wished to marry her to a young nobleman. To avoid marriage, she asked the Lord to make her less attractive, and her request was granted. Impressed by his daughter's determination, Dubtak allowed her to follow her vocation. Shortly after entering religious life, her beauty was restored as a sign of divine grace. Her consecration was the beginning of a journey of service and dedication to the Irish people. Brigid and some companions founded a monastery in Kildare, where a monastic community was established that combined contemplative life with pastoral work. The monastery became a center of spirituality and culture, playing a fundamental role in the evangelization of Ireland. The name Kildare means Church of the Oak, a reference to the ancient tree under which Brigid established her first convent. The place became a symbol of Christianity in Ireland, attracting countless faithful and pilgrims over the centuries. Brigid not only founded a convent, but also created a model of religious life that spread throughout the island. Her sisters dedicated themselves to prayer, manuscript copying, and caring for the sick and needy, inspired by the monastic ideal that would strengthen in the following centuries. Her monastery was double, meaning it housed both women and men under her direction. This unique structure reflected her ability to unite and lead communities, a rare gift for a woman at that time. The saint was known for her wisdom and leadership. Often, kings and nobles turned to her for advice. Her presence and words had a profound impact, always guided by unwavering faith and a burning love for God. Among the numerous miracles attributed to Saint Brigid, one of the most famous recounts that she turned water into beer to supply a monastery in times of need, an episode that illustrates her care for both the body and soul of her brothers. Another famous story tells that a leper asked Brigid for a cow. As she did not have one at the moment, the saint gave him her father's cow without hesitation. Dubtak, furious, confronted her, but ended up admiring his daughter's unwavering generosity. Her love for the poor was unparalleled. Brigid often offered food, clothing, and even liturgical objects to those in need, trusting that God would always provide more. She also had a profound respect for animals. There are accounts that she healed sick cattle and even calmed wild horses with her mere presence. The cross of Saint Brigid, made with intertwined rushes, became one of the most well-known symbols of Ireland. It is said that she braided it while comforting a dying pagan, who upon hearing about Christ asked for baptism before dying. The tradition of making this cross remains alive to this day, especially on February 1st, her liturgical feast, when many faithful place it in their homes for protection. Brigid's love for the Eucharist was immense. She always encouraged frequent reception of the sacraments and promoted the construction of churches and altars for the celebration of Holy Mass. In a time when women had little space in society, Brigid broke barriers with her courage and determination. Her monastery became a true beacon of culture and spirituality, Many of the early Irish writings mention the influence of Saint Brigid on Celtic Christianity, being an essential figure in the transition from paganism to the Christian faith in Ireland. Although the saint lived in humility, her fame spread throughout Ireland and beyond. Her monastery received visitors from all over Europe, attracted by her holiness and wisdom. Her relationship with St. Patrick was one of deep respect. Although she was never his direct disciple, both shared the same goal, to convert Ireland to Christianity. Brigid always emphasized the importance of hospitality, believing that by welcoming a stranger, she was receiving Christ himself. No traveler left her monastery without being well treated. Her love for nature was also a notable characteristic. In her sermons, she often made analogies with fields and animals, making her preaching accessible to everyone. The life of Saint Brigid was a radical response to God's call, marked by unconditional love for the poor and her tireless mission of evangelization. Her legacy would span centuries, making her one of the greatest icons of the Christian faith in Ireland. St. Brigid's fame grew each day, and many went to Kildare, seeking her spiritual guidance and miracles. Her monastery was not only a place of prayer, but also a center of learning and culture, where monks and nuns copied manuscripts and taught the scriptures. It is said that Brigid possessed the gift of prophecy and on various occasions predicted events that would happen in Ireland. One of her most well-known visions was of a future where the Christian faith would spread across the entire island, bringing peace and prosperity. Her care for the poor and the sick was unparalleled. It is said that when visiting a seriously ill man, Brigid asked God to alleviate his suffering, and in the same instant he was healed. This miracle further reinforced her reputation as a powerful intercessor. Among the many stories of her compassion is that of a man who came to her monastery asking for food. As there was no more bread, Brigid gave him her own cloak, which miraculously turned into enough bread to feed the entire community. On another occasion, a starving beggar approached the convent. Brigid, without hesitation, ordered a lamb to be killed to feed him. When her community protested, claiming that was the last lamb, she insisted on sharing. The next day, the flock was miraculously complete again. Her love for the poor was reflected in all aspects of her life. It is said that she offered one of her gold rings to a beggar, and when the object was unexpectedly returned by another stranger, she understood it as a sign of divine providence. Brigid also interceded for the afflicted in times of crisis. During a great famine, her monastery opened its doors to feed hundreds of people. Even with the stocks depleted, bread and milk never ran out, and many witnessed this miracle. Another impressive story tells that once a pagan king refused to give land for Brigid to build a convent. The saint then asked for only a piece of land the size of her cloak. When the king agreed, she spread the cloak on the ground, and miraculously it expanded to cover the vast area where her monastery was later founded. Her commitment to charity did not prevent her from being a great spiritual leader. Bishops and abbots sought her advice, and her monastery became a model for future religious communities in Ireland and beyond. Despite her life of service, Brigid was also a woman of deep contemplation. She spent long hours in prayer, and her communion with God was evident in her serenity and wisdom. Her spirituality was strongly linked to the Celtic tradition, which helped in converting the Irish to Christianity. She knew how to unite elements of the local culture with the Catholic faith, making Christ's message accessible to all. One of the most remembered miracles of Saint Brigid occurred when she healed a blind man. Moved by compassion, she made the sign of the cross over his eyes, and he immediately regained his sight, praising God for her kindness. On one of her missionary journeys, Brigid encountered a group of hungry children. With nothing to offer them, she prayed for help, and suddenly a field of wheat appeared where there had been only stones. Thus, the children were fed. Her example of holiness inspired many women to pursue religious life. Several of Brigid's disciples founded other convents, spreading the spirituality and teachings of the saint throughout Ireland. The power of her prayer was known throughout the region, It is said that once, a fire threatened to destroy a nearby village, and Brigid, with a simple prayer, caused the flames to miraculously extinguish. Her love for creation was evident in her actions. There are records that Brigid protected animals from mistreatment, and that even birds and deer seemed to respond to her presence, approaching without fear. Humility was always one of her greatest virtues. Even being revered by kings and bishops, Brigid never considered herself superior to anyone, dedicating her life to service and prayer. During a great plague that swept through Ireland, Saint Brigid traveled to various villages to care for the sick. Many were healed just by her blessing, and her presence brought comfort and hope. Her monastery in Kildare became so important that a bishopric was established there, and the place became a centre of pilgrimage and devotion, consolidating itself as one of Ireland's greatest spiritual refuges. Among the teachings she left behind, Brigid always emphasized the importance of love for one's neighbour, hospitality, and trust in divine providence. Her charisma inspired not only monks and nuns, but also lay people who wished to live a life of faith. It is said that once, a repentant thief sought Saint Brigid asking for forgiveness. She not only absolved him, but also helped him rebuild his life, showing that God's mercy was within everyone's reach. Her influence reached abroad, and Irish missionaries took her devotion to various parts of Europe. Churches were built in her honor, and her name became synonymous with holiness and compassion. Over the years, her health began to decline, but her faith remained unshakable. Even weakened, she continued to guide her community and intercede for those in need. In the year 525, feeling that her hour was approaching, Brigid gathered her sisters to say goodbye. She asked them never to abandon the poor and to continue the work of evangelization in Ireland. When she finally surrendered her soul to God, a great glow was seen in the sky as a sign of the eternal glory that awaited her. Her death was felt throughout Ireland, and crowds flocked to her monastery to pay their respects. After her death, the legacy of Saint Brigid not only endured, but grew even more. Her monastery in Kildare became one of Ireland's main spiritual centres, attracting pilgrims from all parts of the country and abroad. Her tomb became a place of miracles and healings, and soon her fame surpassed Ireland's borders. Many travellers who visited her sanctuary returned home, telling stories of graces received through her intercession. The veneration of Saint Brigid spread rapidly throughout Europe, especially among Irish monks who evangelized other lands. Her devotion reached England, France, Germany, and even Scandinavia. During the Middle Ages, several churches and monasteries were dedicated to Saint Brigid, and her rush cross became a widely recognized symbol, especially among peasants and faithful seeking protection for their homes. In Ireland, her cult became so strong that her name was given to countless towns and villages. Even kings and nobles recognized her as the patron saint of the country and frequently sought her intercession before battles and important decisions. The monastery of Kildare continued to be a beacon of the Christian faith for centuries. The writings preserved by the monks attested to Brigid's holiness and recounted her miracles, further consolidating her importance in Irish history. The tradition of the sacred flame of Kildare, lit by Brigid to symbolize the light of Christ, remained lit for centuries. The nuns ensured it was never extinguished, demonstrating the commitment to keeping the Christian faith alive. During the Norman invasion of Ireland, many relics from the monastery were taken to safety in other European countries. However, the devotion to Brigid remained intact, resisting adversities. During a period of religious persecutions, the memory of Saint Brigid became a source of resistance for the Irish people. Many persecuted Catholics found strength in her story and protection in her prayers. With the Protestant Reformation, many sites dedicated to Saint Brigid were destroyed or fell into disuse. However, the faithful continued to venerate her in secret, preserving her memory across generations. In the 17th century, the cult of Saint Brigid experienced a revival, especially with the movement of Catholic renewal in Ireland. Churches were rebuilt in her honor, and her feast was widely celebrated again. Her devotion also reached the New World, brought by Irish immigrants who took her faith to countries like the United States, Canada, and Australia, where many churches were erected in her name. Saint Brigid's Day, celebrated on February the 1st, is one of Ireland's most important religious festivals. Celebrations include processions, solemn masses, and the crafting of traditional rush crosses. In some regions, the faithful still follow the custom of hanging the cross of Saint Brigid over their doors for protection against evil and to ask for blessings upon their families. The devotion to Saint Brigid surpassed the religious sphere and became part of Ireland's cultural identity. Her name is frequently remembered in poems, songs, and popular stories. In times of crisis and difficulties, the Irish people always found comfort in the figure of their patron saint, who represented the strength of faith, charity, and hope in divine providence. Saint Brigid is often compared to the Virgin Mary for her maternal role in Irish spirituality. Many call her Mary of Gaul for her tenderness and intercession for the needy. Her example continues to inspire countless religious vocations. To this day, many female congregations around the world bear her name and follow her teachings of service and dedication to others. In the 20th century, Pope Pius XV officially recognized the importance of Saint Brigid to the Catholic Church and encouraged the continuation of her devotion, highlighting her role in the evangelization of Ireland. The Basilica of Saint Brigid, built in the city of Kildare, still today attracts thousands of pilgrims who visit the site to ask for graces and learn more about the history of this great saint. During the 21st century, interest in Saint Brigid increased, especially among those seeking models of female holiness and examples of spiritual leadership within the Church. Her legacy is also valued by the Christian ecological movement, which sees in her relationship with nature an example of respect for creation and of simple and sustainable living. In modern Ireland, Saint Brigid continues to be a symbol of unity and faith. Her name is present in schools, hospitals, and charitable institutions that follow her mission to care for the most needy. Recently, the Irish government announced that Saint Brigid's Day will become a national holiday, recognizing her importance not only to the Catholic faith, but to the country's culture as a whole. The impact of Saint Brigid goes beyond Ireland. In various countries, her devotion remains alive, and many churches in her honor continue to be centers of spirituality and charity. Over the centuries, the influence of Saint Brigid has transcended the barriers of time and borders. Her life and mission continue to inspire Christians around the world, especially those dedicated to serving the poor and the sick. Her figure has become a symbol of courage and female leadership within the Church. In a time when few women had a place in society, Brigid stood out as a spiritual guide, administrator, and tireless evangelizer. Her love for justice and equality is also remembered to this day. Many institutions that defend the rights of the marginalized see in Saint Brigid an example of how faith can transform realities. The cross of Saint Brigid, made of intertwined rushes, continues to be one of Ireland's most popular religious objects. Many families craft it on February 1st and place it in their homes as a sign of divine protection. Her devotion is also reflected in art and literature. Many Irish writers mention Saint Brigid in their poems and songs, and various paintings and sculptures have been made in her honor. The eternal flame of Kildare, a symbol of her spiritual presence, was restored in 1993 by a group of nuns who wished to keep her message of light and hope alive for future generations. Saint Brigid is often associated with miracles related to fertility and motherhood. Many women turn to her intercession to ask for the blessing of motherhood or protection for their children. She is also invoked as the patron saint of midwives, shepherds, and poets, reflecting the diversity of her gifts and her importance in Irish culture. During the COVID-19 pandemic, many faithful in Ireland and other countries turned to Saint Brigid, asking for her intercession for the healing of the sick and relief for those suffering. Her example of hospitality continues to be followed by religious orders and communities that welcome refugees and immigrants, seeing her as a model of compassion and solidarity. Many cathedrals around the world hold relics of Saint Brigid. Some of her relics were taken to Portugal in the 13th century, where they are still venerated. In Rome, a chapel dedicated to Saint Brigid receives faithful who wish to learn more about her life and ask for her intercession. Her name remains alive among the most venerated saints of the Church. Her importance is recognized by spiritual leaders of different Christian traditions. Even outside the Catholic Church, her life and example are respected by Anglicans and Orthodox Christians. Throughout history, many accounts of miracles attributed to Saint Brigid have emerged, from inexplicable healings to events that defied the laws of nature. Her spiritual presence is still felt by many faithful. Her love for the Eucharist and her dedication to the Church continue to inspire priests and religious individuals to fervently follow their vocation, putting God above all else. In times of crisis and difficulty, the Irish people have always turned to Saint Brigid. Her name is remembered in prayers and hymns that ask for her protection and assistance in tribulations. The devotion to Saint Brigid has grown even more in recent years, especially among those seeking an accessible model of holiness based on simplicity and love for others. Many pilgrims travel to Kildare to visit the sacred sites associated with the saint, keeping alive the tradition of her veneration and the search for her intercession. Her presence in the popular imagination is so strong that many stories and legends about her life still circulate among the Irish people, passed down from generation to generation. Even in the modern world, where technology and progress seem to have distanced many people from spirituality, Saint Brigid continues to be a beacon of faith for those seeking meaning in their lives. Her message of hope and charity remains current. Love for the poor, compassion for the sick, and zeal for the faith are values that continue to inspire people of all ages. The name of Saint Brigid is among the most popular in Ireland, and many girls are baptized in her honor, ensuring that her memory is perpetuated through generations. Her liturgical feast, celebrated with great joy and devotion, reminds the faithful that holiness is within reach of all who choose to live for God and others. Saint Brigid represents the soul of Christian Ireland, a symbol of unwavering faith, generosity, and love that transcends time and historical circumstances. Today, her influence remains as strong as in the early centuries of Christianity. Saint Brigid lives on in the memory of the Church and in the hearts of the faithful, a true example of holiness and love for God.